And Andy, I find very few things as satisfying as cleaning out like a room, a
Oh yeah.
location, something,
Oh,
throwing stuff away.
yes.
I did it this weekend with the garage, Andy, and it was long overdue. I had kept the garage in pretty good shape through Christmas, and then just things start, like you want to
Yeah,
save boxes because we have to send packages
of course.
places. And then, I wanted to reorganize some of the Christmas decorations, so I didn't completely put everything back, and just been weird. So it got a little out of hand. Well,
Yeah.
this weekend, I just finally said, "That's it. I'm doing it. I'm taking care of it." And man, does that feel good. Like throwing all the stuff away, donating things to Goodwill and other places, and then just the big, I guess, culminating point is going to be this morning when I go to the dump, Andy, when I can
Oh,
take things
nice.
that don't go into the actual trash can, but can go into the dump. It's so rewarding, Andy. I highly recommend it.
It's huge. So let me ask you this, Dave. Do you guys tend, are you accumulators? Not hoarders, right? Only not hoarders, but
No.
do you tend to accumulate stuff? Sort of nobody wants to throw it away. You like to have it around. You're not ready to get rid of it yet, so it just sort of builds up a little bit.
Yeah, it happens in my closet times, and yeah, it is because here's the thing: is like, and the other thing is like we'll do like my wife runs like the social group in the community, so in our neighborhood area, she runs it, and they do an event like every month, whether it be for kids or adults or seniors or whatever. They do some sort of event every month, and there's a lot of supplies and materials that go along with it. And
Yeah,
I love my wife. I mean, 25 years,
yeah.
but like she likes to take it from her car and just put it in the garage, and it just sits there. Like I found things from like I can't even remember when,
Yeah,
and I was
yeah,
like, but it's all like, and so it just wound up in the trash.
yeah,
So
yeah. No, we're the same. So we went through a renovation earlier this year, and so a lot of stuff got moved around and tucked away during that whole process. And then we're still putting some things back in order. Like we wanted to get the main house back in order, but there's still parts that are not where they need to be. And then I'll find stuff. My wife will kindly put things in the garage because I have no place else to go, and the garage is my gym, so I can't have a bottle of glue out of place, in the gym or whatever else it might be, or those boxes accumulating. But I'm with you. So our basement, we have a room, the storage room down there that has reached that point that I can't wait to do that digging in, cleaning out, charity giving, and especially the throwing away part. So that's one of the things I'm very excited about for the coming up in the next couple of months. So I appreciate your journey this weekend. I appreciate the satisfaction of that whole process. So congratulations to you, Dave. Congratulations to you and your home and your family who might not appreciate it, Dave, but at the end of the day, you're doing it for your whole family. So hats off to you. Cheers to you, Dave Penner.
yeah, so Andy, I mean, it was a good weekend, and you can see I like the beauty of technology. I move locations, Andy.
Yeah.
I hate internet sometimes. Like all of a sudden, my internet just shuts down or it pauses for like 10 seconds, but it's enough to really disrupt a lot of things. Andy, you were a movie critic this weekend. You
I
told
was.
me afterwards you were going to see one of our targeted movies this year,
Yeah.
Civil War. How was it?
Dave, it was. I mean, parts that were tough to watch in a sense. It's not a great movie. It serves its purpose very well. It's a very simple movie. It's entertaining. It's a little entertainment for you. But like the movie is very direct, like 100% direct. For starters, direct and indirect, I should say, because the indirect part, like you have no idea what the hell is going on in this movie the whole time, right? There is civil war in the United States. There's the United States government, and there's this, Western Front, the alliance of California and Texas. Beyond understanding that that is happening, you don't know who anybody in the movie is. You don't know what side they're on. You don't know if they're for one team or the other. Like you don't know their politics. Like you don't know anything. There's no political direction. There's no condemnation of one philosophy or party. It's just chaos. It's just a civil war, and that's all you know. That's the backdrop to the story. And I commend the authors and the director and everybody that did the movie because they kept it that way the whole time. And so there's no, hey, we hate these guys or that guy. It's not like that at all. And so it's just pandemonium, right? The chaos of war. And that is the whole point of the movie, right? At one point, the main character of the movie, photojournalist Kristen Dunst of Spider-Man fame, Dave, we should say, of Spider-Man
I love
fame.
it.
She says a line, and this is in the trailer, I think, so it's not a spoiler, but she just sits down and she sort of is talking to another character in the movie, and she's looking back at her career as the Civil War continues. She says, "Look, all those times I was, in all those other places, sending back photos of their conflicts and wars. The point of all of that was to tell America, don't do this, right? Don't have a civil war." And she says it was just disappointment and exasperation, and that, Dave, is the entire point of the movie. This movie is just saying, "Hey, dumbasses, like under no circumstances would this ever go well, right? I mean, it's ugly, it's violent, it's there's bad people. You don't know what side they're on, but there's bad people doing bad things. There's suicide bombs. There's Americans killing Americans. Some are in uniform, some are dressed sort of like Boogaloo Boys, but they're not. They're interracial. Like there's again, there's no condemnation of anybody. It's just a condemnation of the idea of civil war. And I actually commend the authors of the movie and the way that it was done and portrayed on the screen because, like Dave, you and I have both served in conflict. We've seen it. Most Americans haven't, right? And for a lot of Americans, especially some of the delusional ones that think that extremist action for whatever political side they're on will serve some kind of functional purpose, war, I mean, the old saying, Dave, right? War is hell. Civil war would be absolutely disastrous. It would be ugly. There would be no winners. We know this from our history, but like to forget it. And the movie does a great job of saying, "Hey, don't ever go down this path of intranational violence." And it's entertaining, but it's also a really sad story. My wife jumped numerous times, as gunfire let out and things of that nature. It was well done. Like again, not a great movie, but it very much serves its purpose. And I would encourage folks to check it out. 'Cause I think if you see it, hopefully you'd say, man, this really would suck if it ever happened, and it would be a terrible thing if it ever did happen. So I enjoyed it. It was good. It was good.
Yeah, I was I think you hit on a really good point. It's like we've been to conflict before. We've seen the devastation of what these things can have. Within I was in Iraq and you were too, and you went to Afghanistan as well. I mean, just the those were effectively they emerged until pseudo civil wars. I mean, conflicts within the groups, and I think yeah, you're right. It never works out well. There's never ever going back to how to recover from that.
Yeah,
And I just, I see a lot of the talk and chatter on social media, wherever. And I think we all know that that's not the right place to hear your voices. But
yeah,
the small, the minuscule people who have the loudest voices about this stuff, really just makes you just really wonder how they would respond to such a thing happening. It is quite interesting. I am, as I can connect that to, some of the politics today, we saw a big bill passage this weekend within within the House of Representatives, down in the Senate, for funding to Ukraine and and Israel and a couple other places as well. Interesting to see the rhetoric that comes out of that. Like the Speaker Johnson is again back on the hot seat because
yeah,
he's you hear the word traitor from quote unquote patriots who are saying, how dare these people wave flags of the Ukrainian flag on the floor. I think these are the people who have lost perspective in what they're, what the House of Representatives, what this country is really about, especially when they argue such nonsense of we should be protecting our border, which, by the way, the House of Representatives declined to do 2 months ago because former President Trump told them not to because he wanted to do it during his presidency. Yeah, it's mind numbing to me to see how that type of rhetoric can get just spirals up. I mean, how you can call any of these individuals traitors to the Republican Party or traitors to the United States. I see, even saw former military people say, I served 8 years, and I see people waving flags, not American. Like, dude, you don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Please stop, stop trying to say some symbolic act is somehow, um, you know, undermines your service in any way, shape, or form. I mean, it's garbage. That's the stuff I hate the most. But yeah, interesting to see. So I appreciate that perspective. Hey, what are your thoughts on the House passing that bill this weekend?
Yeah, well, so it's frustrating because this kind of hits on one of the things I hate most about politics, which is like I fully support funding Ukraine, funding our other allies and partners. This bill rolls in support for Israel, rolls in support for Taiwan. I support that, right? What I hate to see is what Congress always does, whether it's a smaller bill like this, smaller, still huge, but smaller, or the massive, omnibus spending bill that they like to pass, is they bundle things together that don't go together.
Yeah,
And whether you agree or disagree with the issues, it puts people in a really awkward situation having to vote. Either you vote for, let's say, Ukraine funding, but there's other stuff woven in there, right? That maybe you don't support. We should have separate debate about. In this case, the long discussed TikTok ban, right? Forcing TikTok to sell their interest, right? Forcing ByteDance, the ownership of TikTok, to sell their interest, is woven into this bill. Yeah, you can argue it's a national defense, issue, and so it's rolled into this bill, but they're completely unrelated,
yeah.
right? Personally, I think there's arguments to be made on TikTok, but I don't agree with the forced sale of TikTok. I don't like to see the fact that if you go and support the funding for Ukraine here, you also have to fund or support, I should say, the selling of ByteDance interest in TikTok. That's ugly politics. It puts politicians in an awkward position of having to vote for or against something they might not really want to vote for or against. And that's for political purposes, right? It's to force the bill through or make politicians go against something they might not want to go against. That's dirty. That's embarrassing. I really I don't look well on Speaker Johnson for doing that. It's exactly what all other speakers do and have done, right? It's the crap that Congress does, but it's really shitty because it stifles debate. Americans lose sight of these things happening. It's not transparent. It's not honest. It's mixing things up that don't belong together. It's bad politics, and Congress does this regardless of who's in charge, regardless of who's the majority, regardless of who's the speaker, time and time again. It's a disservice to the United States, a disservice to the American people. It's shitty politics, and I honestly expect nothing less from Speaker Johnson or any other politician in Congress today. To me, it's garbage politics, Dave.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, I think this is where things get is so challenging and so frustrating. Is again, you're right, because they try to put these little what a pork barrel politics is what was some of it's
Yeah.
called, in adding some of that stuff in there. And yeah, very, very challenging, very frustrating. So we'll see. The speaker will probably be called or called out this week. So we'll see if they bring that to a vote and cause more disaster. The Republicans continue to do it themselves. I mean, this is an opportunity for them to really embrace supporting an international partner
Yeah.
against a common in a group that everyone is mentioning is trying to, between Russia, China, and Iran, are making very aggressive plays. And unless 10 years from now, if you don't, you could realize if we would have just done this, we
Yeah.
would have had a different result. But of course, we're all traders. All right, Andy, I want to just call up one more political thing. And then we want to talk about a couple of anniversaries this week, I think, for a couple
Right.
things here. But I do want to talk about in Maine this week. A new Maine law has brought the country closer to having the popular vote determine the winner of the national presidential election. It's probably not going to happen before this November, but last week, the Maine governor allowed a bill to become a law without her signature that would take effect once the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, that's, again, I'll say that again, the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, is able to gain pledges from 270 electoral votes, the number which are the number of delegates needed to make president. to effectively make the the popular vote be the instead of the electoral college, um, be the decider of the presidential election, Andy. So this is important for a lot of different reasons because the electoral college was designed. You get a vote based on every congressional district or whatever, and based on the number of districts you may have, your state weighs certain amount of things. But and I think that was designed to, at the time, by the founders, to give everybody that vote, to give everybody that belief that they had a say in the election. And I think over time that's just really not become the case because you have some states that are, if you focus on those states and you don't worry about the little ones where you get only 4 or 5 electoral votes, it's not as important.
Yeah.
And so those votes have not mattered. And I think some of the quotes in here were, in 2020 had 20,000 people, even though President Biden won by over 7 million votes over former President Trump, had 20,000 people in a handful of states change their vote from Biden to Trump, Trump would have won, even
Yeah.
though he was $7 million, 7 million in the deficit. And in fact, there were only a handful of times when the winner, the loser of the popular vote was elected president. One of those was Donald Trump in 2016. So interesting part there. What do you think about this movement, Andy?
Yeah. Well, let's just say the loser of every election is the American people, regardless of who wins the presidency or other political office. But yeah, so I have two minds on it, Dave. I wrestle with this one a little bit. On the surface of it, it totally makes sense, right? If you win the popular vote, you should be the winner of the election. Like that totally makes sense on the surface of it. And I appreciate the idea of it. And I'm not totally opposed to it. However, I don't think I support it. And I've long stood on this position and I've regularly struggled with it. But if you go straight popular vote, you're really empowering large population states that may tilt heavily in one direction, right? So, for example, New York or California, very much, safe democratic places, very highly populated, a lot of Americans that will vote for one party. That doesn't necessarily reflect the interests of a lot of other parts of these United States. And so even though the popular vote may be super spiked in some of these states to one party or another, you have to account for the fact that we're 50 very different states and territories, right, to get to vote. And that somehow should be represented, right? Because the people of Iowa, the people of Idaho, the people of West Virginia should have their chance to have their voices heard, and smaller population states really get squashed in this process. And their interests are very different than a lot of the other states. Every state has its own unique interests. And so I kind of like the fact the Electoral College gives them their voices, right? Just like we have the Senate and the House, because there's two different purposes, right? One is everybody's equal, one is based on population. The Electoral College sort of tries to play that same game and more fairly represent the interests of a very diverse nation. It's a rare thing where you have the 2016 result, where, so like you said, Dave, two times in American history where somebody loses the popular vote and somehow wins the election. It's possible. It's frustrating when that happens, but does it represent a more fair balance of the interests of the United States collectively, right? Not just the popular vote, which is again heavily tilted in some states that are then forcing the entire union to go in their direction. I think the Electoral College serves an important purpose. Now, can we do elections differently and better? Yes, I support ranked choice voting. I think that would make a huge difference. I don't mind the splitting of delegates, in the Electoral College, and some states do that where they don't necessarily go, everybody you get all the electoral votes because you win a certain state. So I think there's different ways to manage it. But I think the popular vote, at the end of the day, I think it's something I can understand it. I understand Americans' desire for it, but I think it really hurts the union at the end of the day. I think the cause was well thought through and serves a very critical purpose for our country. I would be sad to see it go because I think it would really hurt the smaller states, that don't have as loud a voice as California, New York, Texas, and others, Pennsylvania. I think it's really important that we get every American represented. I think the Electoral College is a key part of doing that. I would, I think, want to keep it.
Yeah, I'm generally inclined to want to keep the electoral college too, but I would be more inclined to the winner take all approach needs to probably be
Yeah,
reevaluated. I think that's
yeah,
where you can make progress because I do, yeah, there are some states, I think notably Nebraska, where they do split, if
yeah,
you depending on how each of the districts vote, you get that. I think that seems more reasonable because I think you do hear, the huge population centers, which generally trend more Democratic do wind up carrying the state. So, like a state like Pennsylvania, you have Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. The rest of the state is red, but those two areas are heavy blue,
yeah.
and they win the state. And so that makes the middle of the state, which are a different class of individual and no less important, may feel left out. So I think that's where I would probably find some opportunity. Again, I do think that it'll be it's interesting. I'm not particularly siding one way or the other, but I think we can have more refinement to the electoral college because I do think that's the uniqueness about America.
Yeah.
All right, Andy, let's wrap this podcast up on a couple anniversary talks. Andy, where do you want to go first? You want to go Pump Club or you want to talk about your own personal anniversary here?
Why don't we go Pump Club, David? Worth noting, Dave, they're talking anniversaries. If my math is right, by math I mean I looked at Friday's episode. Also an important milestone for us is this is episode 75 of Men of a Certain X. I mean, hey, no short event right there, right? So we
No
should
small feat, Andy. No
no,
small feat. Getting up every morning with you, or most mornings with you, it's been my treat, Andy.
likewise, Dave. And we don't do this for us, Dave. We do it for a generation that's overlooked by the boomers and the millennials. We do this for America. We do this to
Right.
represent. I mean, look, the greatest generation, long, spoke of the generation that pursued the boomers, but really, we all know that Gen X is the greatest generation, and so we do this as a service to our generation, to our brothers and sisters, and to our nation. I mean, hats off to us, Dave. But that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking other events today. So yeah, Pump Club. So you and I have often referred to the Arnold Schwarzenegger Pump Club on this podcast, right? The newsletter, which kicked off last January, the app and the communities built, there. And we've talked about just sort of the great value of plugging into communities, of positive encouragement, people helping each other, supporting each other. And this last weekend, the folks in the Pump Club really celebrated just the positive vibes of the community, right? Not just working out, not just nutrition, but just the encouragement of the village, of all the folks who are there, of one another, through major events. I shared about my cancer there. Others have shared about their own physical ailments and struggles there. Folks have talked about different issues they're going through, and the community just really supported one another in fantastic ways. And I think again, we said just the importance of plugging into something is so key. And that's just one great way to do it, right? It's so open to folks, whether you want to lift heavy weights or lift a lot of weights or use your body weight to work out, or you're 20 years old or 70 years old. There's lots of ways to do it, and to be motivated by other successes and challenges and then supporting one another. So hats off to Daniel Ketchel, Adam Bornstein, and of course Arnold Schwarzenegger, and all the folks involved in that community for building something that's just really helping so many people around the world, Dave, right? The daily newsletter is free and I think super encouraging, chock full of great information. We've referred to it a number of times. The app is great. And it's just great to see things like that succeed. So, salute to the Pump Club. Happy 1 year anniversary to that group and community. Grateful that we're a part of it, Dave. Grateful to see so many people plugged into it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's been great. I really enjoy the newsletter every week because or every day because or every weekday, not on the
There you go.
weekend.
There you go. It all comes together.
It all comes together every weekday, because I think what they do is they really try to get to the ground truth of things. They look at the research of certain new studies that come out, and they try to dispel the fear and the that goes across on, oh, the latest study said drinking red wine will kill you in 3 days. Well, then they look at it and like, actually, it'll kill you in 3 days if you're drinking 3 bottles a day, because that's where some of the details get lost in the headlines. And I think if we could have the Pump Club analyze our politics and really do that with politics instead of just health, I
Yeah.
think we'd be in a really great space because I think so much misinformation is put out there for the lore of headlines and for the lore of your work and I think that is really challenging. But I love it. It's really motivational. It's a quick read.
Yeah.
Literally takes 5 minutes to go through it, but really good stuff. And if you're really interested in doing more, they give you the opportunity to find out more. They put a lot of stuff in there. So I love it, Andy. And thanks for turning me on to it. I think it's been really great. So um, good stuff.
I'm happy to turn you on. I mean,
You do, Andy. You definitely. So, all right, Andy, you got another anniversary this week to
yeah.
celebrate. You tell our listeners all about that.
Yeah, so thanks. So tomorrow, Dave, April 23rd is my now annual Happy to Be Alive Day celebration. And that's after 7 years ago, I was happily riding my bike on the beautiful Washington and Old Dominion Trail. Was crossing the street as one does when riding a bicycle, and I had a 1v1 with a high speed, quickly moving silver SUV that T-boned me, broke four of my ribs, 10 fractures across four ribs, sent me flying through the air, blacked out, face down on the pavement. A pretty fun afternoon and moment in my ride. But it literally beat the shit out of me. I mean, I was in pretty bad shape there for a couple of weeks as I was healing, and just I've always taken that since the last 7 years as Happy to Be Alive Day, because it could have gone otherwise, if thank God for helmets, and I was just fortunate in the way that it hit me. So grateful to be alive on this day, and this year, all the more, as I recognize that day on the 23rd. Later this week, I get to go in for a scan and hopefully some good news on the cancer front. So even more sort of hopefully reason to celebrate this annual tradition. So I'm happy to have Happy to Be Alive Day. Dave, I encourage anybody. We should always take time to be grateful. Express gratitude. We often get bogged down in the shitty politics and other things that distract us each day. And it's important to celebrate and really be grateful for all that we have. You and I both, I think, try and do that. But having this day set aside for me is to pause and really just give thanks to still be here, for my family, for my friends, for those I work with. I'm very grateful for that. For you, Dave, for you. But I think everyone should pause and celebrate. So hey, America, feel free to join me on April 23rd on Happy to Be Alive Day and just celebrate the fact that we're not under we're not in an urn, we're not underground, we're still breathing, trying to do good things for this world and enjoy our lives. I'm grateful to be alive, Dave, and so happy to be alive day to you.
Yeah, for sure. And all of our listeners out there, please let us know how you're celebrating Andy's Happy to Be Alive Day. But Andy, I remember when this happened. I mean, you sent out a note in our little Slack channel thing, and you made it, you downplayed it, I think, is had a little fender bender today, and nobody, I don't think, fully understood how uh, how hard that was. Andy, I had one broken rib at one point in time, four broken ribs flying through the air, hitting your head, no doubt, on the pavement. I can only imagine how hard that was just to move around on a
Yeah.
day. I mean, you said it kicked your ass. I would say it definitely would. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, I remember waking up on the road, like I got hit, and that whole thing was like slow motion, right? I mean, you don't think it's really going to play out that way, but like that, oh shit moment, as the SUV's coming in, like time does slow down, and then I was out, and then I remember just waking up on the road, and like all I could do was moan. I was just moaning in place. But all things considered, I was fine. I remember calling my wife from the ERs. They were like cutting my cycling jersey off of me. And I was like, "Hey, honey, I had a bit of an accident today," and and talked her through that. But it was tough. I mean, your ribs are just so sensitive. Every time you
yeah,
move, cough, whatever, like you're like, "Oh shit, that hurts a ton." And I'll tell you, they gave me some pretty strong opioids. I took one pill. I was so like pissed off with how much it messed me up. I threw those things away and never took another one. Tylenol and Motrin are really all you need, and just suck up a little bit of pain because I got I don't know how people enjoy being that out of their mind. I hated it, and that was miserable. But yeah, but hey, things happen. We have accidents between combat zones and bike crashes, and Yeah, I've been crashing on bikes since I was 7 years old, Dave. So it seems to have been a long part of my family, but nonetheless, very very grateful to still be here. And again, as hopefully I put cancer in the rearview mirror, even more so. So thanks for letting me celebrate that day here on the podcast today.
Well, we're certainly happy that you're alive, Andy, and
Thanks.
I will celebrate, and I encourage everyone else to celebrate along with you tomorrow for that day. Andy, anything else to wrap up on?
No, just some fun news, but I think we'll save that for another day. And
Yeah.
we've got tons of waste to cover as always, and I'm sure all sorts of other fun topics that'll come our way in the course of the week. So
It,
happy last full week of April. So
yeah.
time keeps
It,
moving.
it's Monday. It's only Monday, so Marjorie Taylor Greene has got some work ahead of her this week to give us something for Waste Wednesday. No doubt she'll give it to us. All right, Andy, with that then, I will catch up with you next time.